Hi guys, welcome back. So today, I'm not entirely sure how this video is gonna go, but we're gonna do our best, right? So, this is the geologic timescale. This is a piece of, it's a fold out from the National Park Service. Recently, I went to a state park in Kentucky called Big Bone Lick State Park. And it was recently just registered as a national natural landmark. I'm pretty sure National Historic Natural Landmark, something like that, on top of being a state park. So now it also is somewhat taken care of by the National Park Service. I went recently on a weekend. There's not a whole ton there, but it is interesting. Sorry about that. But it is interesting to like walk in the same places as, you know, history. And you get to see examples of it there. So, for some background, Big Bone Lick State Park is a salt flat area. There are these salt ponds located there that drew in prehistoric animals because they would use the salt. It also brought in indigenous people because they could extract salt from the sulfur pools. These salt springs. So this place is located in Union, Kentucky, and it is really out in the middle of nowhere. I had no cell service, and I have a major mobile carrier, not like a small one or anything, so the fact that I didn't have any service that's how far out we were. But this place is located probably about an hour from Cincinnati, Ohio. So it's in that, if you look at Kentucky like a oblong kind of triangle, it's in that part that goes up towards Ohio. The video that I posted last week was actually taken on a trail there. There was a ton of people, but I was, on a trail, and I was entirely by myself, and we did not see another person for the entirety of the trail, and it was a beautiful trail. You were in such a dense forest. It took you to see the salt springs, but it was really neat. So this is the map here, and pretty much what it is you come in through, I think it was this way, Beaver Road, I'm pretty sure, or you could come in off of Big Bone Union Road. I'm pretty sure we'd come from this direction, and we came here? Yeah, we came up this way, which this road has a name as well, but I can't remember what it is. And then we took a right, and here it's left, all the way down to the museum and the gift shop, because that's where a lot of these trails start. So this is the trail that I walked. We walked this one. We first left and did the salt spring, just this one, and then we cut all the way around and came back. Pretty sure. We were just kind of going off of vibes. It's not like you could get lost. It's a very small area. But once we got back, we also came over this way to view the bison herd. They do raise bison, since bison are a historic animal to this area. They have living bison in place of the original buffalo. But yeah, so we did not end up taking the whole loop around or going around or anything. We just stuck around here, and we went and got some delicious food afterwards. It was just nice to be out in nature, and it was a beautiful day, so I cannot complain. So back on this side, some information about the park. So it says, welcome to the birthplace of American vertebrate paleontology. This place is majorly significant. You can actually find nearly complete skeletons, or I guess fossils, that have been preserved of prehistoric animals, megafauna specifically, American megafauna, in museums across the world. And that originated from the salt lakes here at Big Bone Lake. So let's read what this has to say. It says, the park aims to promote the understanding and appreciation of American vertebrate paleontology and the late Pleistocene Ice Age, and provides a place for meaningful recreation experiences. Huge Ice Age mammals such as the American mastodon and Harlan's ground sloth once traveled here from miles around to lick mineral-rich soil. Today these animals are extinct, but their bones remain. You can explore places where mammoths once walked the earth. This is also a place where people come to make salt. Paleo Indians, then Shawnee Indians, and eventually white settlers all traveled to this area to make salt from the natural saline spring water. In the 1800s, Big Bone was the location of a hotel and health spa. People traveled here to enjoy the restorative waters of the spring. They drank from and bathed in the springs. I would not drink from that. It's salt water and it smells like sulfur, so like rotten eggs. Have you ever been to Yellowstone or another hot spring feature like that? That's what that smell is. It's ugh. I would not want to bathe in it, let alone drink it. Since the turn of the 20th century, large-scale salt making and hotels have left Big Bone Lake, and it has become a place where history lives on. Established as a state park in 1960, the park is on the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail and is a designated national natural landmark. So this is the reproduction of Harlan's ground sloth that was found here at Big Bone Lake. They were also found across the continent of the United States, as well as I think into Canada, but there's a lot here. So here we are. Things to see and do. Just barely out of frame. No, that's as far as let me zoom. Okay, sorry. Visit the Big Bone American bison herd. The park maintains a small bison herd as a tangible, living link to the park's prehistoric past. Bison, though having changed in size and appearance over the last 20,000 years, have been a constant witness to the continual drama that has played out on the Big Bone landscape from the waning of the Ice Age to the present day. There are so many typos on this paper. Would they like me to have reread it? So outside they have this Pleistocene megafauna diorama. There's a giant mammoths and a giant ground sloth. And they're a little funny looking. They're definitely more for kids, but it does give you an idea of the size of what we were dealing with, you know? I hope that air doesn't mess up the camera, the mic, but I won't know until later, I guess. So let's look here. I was gonna do the time scale, but I think next we should do this. This is the fossil Q&A, which is a little page that you could take with you, and some fossil facts. So let's take a look at this bright orange page. So, in case you don't know, a fossil is the preserved remains or traces of an organism. Oh my goodness. Once again, I'm willing to spell check for them. The traces of an organism from a previous geologic period. The oldest known fossils are cyanobacteria from Archean rocks of Western Australia, dated 3.5 billion years old. That is what gave us life. That is what brought plants and algae and things. That's it. The world's largest recorded complete trilobite fossil is about 28 inches long, so just over 2 feet, about 2/3 of a meter. The age of a mammoth at death can be roughly determined by counting the growth rings of a cross-section of its tusks. I did not know that. That one's interesting. Almost like a tree ring. Kentucky state fossil is a brachiopod. Go figure. Most of Kentucky was underwater for a long, long time, so we've got a lot of brachiopods. The diet of an extinct animal can often be decided by examining fossilized teeth as well as coprolite, or their fossilized poop. Hydrate or dehydrate, it's water time. If you didn't drink water, you better be asleep. Or else you have no excuse. So here's our little Q&A. Does Big Bone Lick have dinosaur fossils? No, the majority of large animal remains are from the Pleistocene mammals from around 24,000 to 12,000 years ago. Are we allowed to keep the fossils that we find? No, because the park is a preserve. You are not allowed to keep anything living or dead that you find out on the park. In the park. This includes fossils and plants. There's a very steep fine and/or jail time for removing anything from a state park. Same thing goes with a national park. That is actually considered a federal offense. What should I do if I find a bone? Please do not move the bone. Go to the office and notify the program services supervisor or park manager. If you move the bone, you may destroy any contextual data that could be collected. Are there fossils from other time periods found on the park? Yes, we have a vast number of Ordovician fossils that can be found in the park. That's probably going to be, sea creatures, there we are. What is an Ordovician fossil? An Ordovician fossil is a cast or mold of an ancient sea creature that lived about 450 million years ago. At that time, Kentucky was under the sea, and when the animals died, they were preserved in the rock that formed. What is the most common type of rock found in the park? Limestone. Limestone is extremely common around here because we were all underwater. What types of Ordovician fossils can be found in the park? Trilobites, cephalopods, gastropods, crinoids, brachiopods. Ooh, that's a new one. Pelecypods, and bryozoans. I'm sure a lot of you have these, and I have a ton. It's to the point that, we don't even pick them up anymore. And that's coming from me. I pick up any kind of rock. And I've seen so many of them and trilobite fossils in rock, in the limestone, even in our driveway, that it's just why bother? You'll have too many. You won't know what to do with yourself. So let's try to take a look at the geologic timescale. So this goes from oldest all the way to present day. I said that entirely backwards. So let's start back here. So I should probably do a better in-depth video about the geologic timescale because it is quite fascinating. So, so down here, millions of years, we have the Precambrian, which was 4,500 to 541 million years ago. And the Precambrian is pretty much where, like, there was life, but it was very minimal life. But this is where we first started to see it. But it was so minimal, like cellular. The Cambrian, where things started to pick up, and that is the Paleozoic. So this, all of this in green here, is the Paleozoic era. So we have eras, we have periods, we have epochs, but epochs don't show up till we get closer to more modern times, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So down here at the bottom we have Cephalospis, which were found in a trace fossil site in Colorado. And just above it we have an artist's depiction of a trilobite. And these were found at the Falls of the Ohio, from the Ohio Coral Reef. What a concept. Red Mountain Expressway cut Alabama and Ohio Coral Reef. If you've ever seen the Ohio River, that ain't no coral reef, babe. that is so interesting to picture. Oh, sorry. So here we have the Cambrian period, which goes from about 550-ish. Kind of weird, kind of throwing me off here with the 541 million years, and then they extended out to here. But, you know, whatever. But here we go, about the 550 million years ago mark. We have the Cambrian period, the Ordovician period, which is that 450 million year ago mark, where you can find brachiopods like these shells. We've also got nautiloid over here, Vermont, New York. After the Ordovician, we have the Silurian, and then the Devonian. I'll fold this backwards. After the Devonian, we have the Carboniferous period, which other places in the world, I'm pretty sure, just recognize it as the Carboniferous. They do not recognize it as split into these two smaller periods, but I think in the United States, I think that's the cutoff, is the US separates them. So in the Carboniferous period, we also have the Mississippian and the Pennsylvanian periods. But generally, it's all going to be referred to the Carboniferous. And some professors even don't reference those two. So here's a drawing of a horseshoe crab. Those have been around a long time. In West Virginia, the hyboid on today's shark. And then we get into the age of dinosaurs, which most of you are going to reference or going to understand. So this darker blue is the Mesozoic era. This is where we have the Triassic, the Jurassic, and the Cretaceous periods. All three very important. This is when life started to really pop off. Like, you had the Cambrian explosion, but now things are getting big. So here's the ichthyosaur. I can never pronounce that right. Allosaurus, Stegosaurus. Everyone knows the Tyrannosaurus, and a sauropod. We also had fir trees, and they're kind of in line, like, with what you're gonna find along that time scale, but, like, it's not, like, perfect. So, I think I just bumped you, sorry. So the Triassic the Jurassic, the Cretaceous, these are where you're gonna find your big boys. That is until we get into the Cenozoic. And like I said, I think I'm gonna do a more in-depth video, so I'll probably keep this and we'll talk about this again. So now we're back here. This is the Cenozoic era. In here is where all, well, not even that, honestly, but in here is where life is, where human life is, in the Cenozoic. So we used to call it the Tertiary period, but now we split it into the Paleogene and the Neogene. And then up here we also have the Quaternary period, which is pretty much since humans have been here, like modern day humans. So the Paleogene is split into 3 epochs. So these are even smaller divisions of time, all marked by various different things. The Paleocene, the Eocene, and the Oligocene. The Neogene is split into the Miocene and the Pliocene. And then in the Quaternary period, like I said, this is like human life. So yeah, there you go. Here's 0 years from today. 0 years from today. Here's us. We are that white line, pretty much. That's right under the word epoch. Out of all that recorded history, recorded, quote unquote, out of all this history, all the way down to here, when we started to see life in the Precambrian, you and I are right there. I just realized my flash is on. I guess I bumped it. The Quaternary period is split into the Pleistocene and the Holocene. The Pleistocene is where you're going to see your mammoths, your saber-toothed cats, these various different types of horses. And then, of course, the Holocene is more recorded history. I'm actually trying to remember the name. I'm pretty sure we have another, like, scientists are arguing for another epoch that we're currently in. And I cannot remember the name of it, but it starts during World War II, once the first atom bomb was dropped. Because that's when when humans really started to, like, affect the planet. So yeah. I'll do a better in-depth video about the timeline. Of the geologic scale. Another day. But there's one other thing I'd like to show you. It's also drink time. Drink your water, people. I recently started this. I've not gotten very far, unfortunately. I had a bit more time a few weeks ago, and now I don't have that time. This book is called The Sixth Extinction, an Unnatural History. This is written by Elizabeth Colbert, the winner of Pulitzer Prize, and I'm pretty sure pretty much every year since this was published, she has gone in and written an update. Check what year this was published. I think it was 2019? 2015. So it's been 10 years since this came out. So this is the original version. I highly recommend this. I'm not that far in, as you can see, but I highly recommend this. I did buy this used, I think I mentioned, which is why This is kind of fallen off. It really was in really good shape until I got a hold of it. I took it over to my partner's family's house, and they just got a new puppy, and the puppy got a hold of it. So now I have little puppy teeth marks, including on my bookmark. I can't be mad at her though. So I can't be mad at her though. So I've tabbed a couple things in here. This is essentially a documentation of all the ways that humans are causing the next great extinction. So the geologic timescale is split into what's recognized as 5 great extinctions. All of them pertain to when life got wiped out. So there are various different reasons. Of course, we all know, like, the meteor took out the dinosaurs, things like that. There were only 5 that we've categorized, at least. And they're categorized as a major event where a sudden loss of life occurred, like a major loss of life, like thousands and thousands, vast majority of the species on that walked that planet or swam on that planet were wiped out. So the 6th extinction, they reference to humans causing this, oh, I already told you, hush, causing this major extinction to occur. So we're wiping out animals left and right, different species, fish, birds, mammals, reptiles, you name it, at such a vast and quick rate that this is very similar to the mass extinctions that have already occurred. So when you go to the contents page in here, it's split into several different chapters. We have an author's note to begin with, the prologue, and then chapter 1 is the 6th extinction. 2 is the mastodons, molars. 3, the original penguin. 4, the luck of the ammonites. 5, welcome to the Anthropocene. That's what it's called. The Anthropocene. That's the one that starts during World War II. Or around World War II, when we dropped the first atom bomb. Like, as a test. That's the Anthropocene. And that one's debated if technically we're in this new epoch. And I think a lot of modern scientists are agreeing that we are. That the Holocene is ended and we're now in the Anthropocene. Back in the 40s. 5, welcome to the Anthropocene. 6, the sea around us. 7, dropping acid. 8, the forest and the trees. 9, islands on dry land. 10, the new Pangea. 11, the rhino gets an ultrasound. 12, the madness gene. And 13, the thing with feathers. I have acknowledgements, notes, bibliography, photo and illustration credits, and an index as well for the last 30 some pages, 40, I think, yeah, about 40, 44 pages. I only just started chapter 3, but I wanted to read a section from chapter 2 because it pertains to what we're talking about. So here we are, the mastodons, molars, Mammoth americanum, which is the scientific name for mastodon. And I've had this tabbed, and I thought it was just fun to include. So, here we go. When exactly Europeans first stumbled upon the bones of an American mastodon is unclear. An isolated molar unearthed in a field in upstate New York was sent off to London in 1705. It was labeled the tooth of a giant. The first mastodon bones subjected to what might anachronistically be considered a scientific study were discovered in 1739. That year, Charles Lemoyne, the second Baron de Longueville, was traveling down the Ohio River with 400 troops, some, like him, Frenchmen, most of the others Algonquins and Iroquois. The journey was arduous, and supplies were short. On one leg, a French soldier would later recall, the troops were reduced to living off acorns. Sometime, probably in the fall, Longwool, and I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, Longwool and his troops set up camp on the east bank of the Ohio, not far from what is now the city of Cincinnati. Several of the Native Americans set off to go hunting. A few miles away, they came to a path of marsh that gave off a sulfurous smell. Buffalo tracks led to the marsh from all directions, and hundreds, perhaps thousands, of huge bones poked out of the muck, like spars of a ruined ship. The men returned to camp carrying a thigh bone 3.5 feet long, an immense tusk, and several huge teeth. The teeth had roots the length of a human hand, and each one weighed nearly 10 pounds. Longwool was so intrigued by the bones that he instructed his troops to take them along when they broke camp. Lugging the enormous tusk, femur, and molars, the men pushed on through the wilderness. Eventually, they reached the Mississippi River, where they met with a second contingent of French troops. Over the next several months, many of Longwool's men died of disease, and the campaign they had come to wage against the Chickasaw ended in humiliation and defeat. Nevertheless, Longwool kept the strange bones safe. He made his way to New Orleans, and from there shipped the tusk, the teeth, and the giant femur to France. They were presented to Louis XV, who installed them in his museum, the Cabinet du Roi. Decades later, maps of the Ohio River Valley were still largely blank, except for the place where the elephant bones were found. Today, the place where the elephant bones were found is a state park in Kentucky known as Big Bone Lake. Later, they would go on to name it, instead of an elephant, they would name it the unknown animal of the Ohio. They debated if it was an elephant, a hippopotamus, things like that. More bones from Big Bone Lick were brought to Europe and exhibited, and that started a very interesting thing. Thomas Jefferson wrote about it on his Notes on the State of Virginia, and later, when he was president, he dispatched Meriwether Lewis and William Clark to the Northwest. Jefferson hoped that they would come upon live incognita roaming its forest. So they thought that further west of the Mississippi, Jefferson thought that further west of the Mississippi, mastodons, which were the bones that they found, still existed, and they just migrated west, and so they thought that perhaps Lewis and Clark would come across them as they crossed the country to get to the Pacific. Instead, Meriwether Lewis would actually have several expeditions to Big Bone Lick, where he would keep bringing in more and more bones and finding no more answers. Yeah. They keep returning to and from the Ohio River because this was the first time that an American mastodon was found. And nobody knew what it was. For like almost 100 years, nobody really put a name to it. But I thought that was neat. So that is why Big Bone Lick is considered the birthplace of modern American paleontology, was because that was quite literally the place where they could keep going back to dig up more and more bones from species that no longer existed. And if you're a nerd about this like I am, I highly recommend this book. I would get the more updated editions if I were you, just so you know, you feel even more sense of dread. But yeah. The 6th extinction. Big Bone Lake State Park in Kentucky. I'd like to go back again and explore more. I didn't quite know what I was doing, and I didn't really have a ton of time. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this ramble. Maybe learned a thing or two. And I will see you next time, I think. I think next week we'll do another map video. Another part 3 of the National Park Map series. What do you say? As always, let me know what you think. Leave a suggestion if you'd like. Don't be shy. Thank you for 125 subscribers. I have no idea how we got that many. I hope you have a good night, a good day, good evening, whatever. I hope this brought some, I don't know, peace maybe, or distraction. And I hope you sleep well, whether it's now or later. I will see you next time. And until then, I hope you're good. Hope life is good to you. Right. See you next week.